Hello, my name is Xander. Welcome back to Python. This is the Python Beginner Plus pathway or course. In this course, we are looking at exploring how to implement or further implement our skills that we've learned from the Python Beginners course. In the first tutorial, we took a look at asynchronous programming, a first look at asynchronous programming, and saw how we could develop our application so that we could run concurrently different tasks or tasks concurrently. So in this tutorial, we're going to take a look at a GUI framework, Tkinter or Tkinter. This is pronounced in so many different ways. Every time I meet someone, almost they sound like they're pronouncing this slightly different, but this is a GUI interface framework. So TK interface is a graphical user interface toolkit, and this is going to provide us a toolkit, tools such as text boxes, labels, and buttons, and we're going to build an application with an interface. If you remember, or if you took the Python Beginners course, we created a bill calculator, and that calculated a discount on a price that we entered into our application. So what we're going to do, we're going to take this code and we're going to convert that into an application. So let's just start this up. So I'll just give you a quick preview. Here we go. So we're going to build an interface for this. So we're able to take in the final build total, and then we can work out utilizing existing code that we previously built, the total price. We calculate the bill, and there we go. So we had the final price. So this is a preview of what we're going to work towards in this tutorial. So this tutorial will be a step-by-step tutorial building this small application. We are going to learn the basics of Tkinter. We won't go through every single element of it. That would be a 5-6 hour tutorial, but I just wanted to introduce you to this GUI framework, so potentially you could start utilizing it to build some more applications. So it's worth noting that although we're running this in Python, we could turn this into an exe. Here I'm running Windows, so I could actually turn this into an application. That's something that you could explore after this tutorial. Right, so let's get started utilizing Tkinter. So we're going to need to import it, Tkinter, and we're going to import it as TK. So we're going to reference the package as TK. Right, so first of all, we need to sort out a window, a platform for us to then place widgets so that we can add buttons as well and so forth. So let's first of all do that. So here we're going to create a new variable here called window, and then that's going to equal TK. So we're referencing TK, the package, the Tkinter package, and then we're going to create an instance of the TK class with TK. Right, so that creates a new window and assigns it to the variable window. So now I've got a new window for me to then start playing and working with Tkinter. Right, so now I've got that, I can now define some of the parameters for my window. So the platform or the stage where I'm going to place everything onto. So window, for example, geometry. So let's go ahead and just add some size or dimensions to my window. So 400, say, times 210. That's what I'm going to be working with. You can change it if you like. There's no particular reason why I've done this. It's just that everything kind of fits in nicely to my application that you saw from the preview. So that's the size of my window. That's going to be the size that I'm going to use. And I can go ahead and add some more parameters or attributes here. The title, for example. So I'm going to be calling this billing program. There we go. Right, so in order to get Tkinter started, we're going to need to use the main loop. That tells Python to run the Tkinter event loop. And that's basically something that listens for events such as buttons and clicks and key presses and things like that. And then also it can then, it'll run until we close the window. So let's go ahead now and add that in. So that's going to be window.main loop. There we go. Right, so now we've got that in place, we can actually start the program. So let's have a look. There we go. So we now, we now have our window where we can start to add buttons and inputs and so on. So this should open up in this size here, 400 by 210. However, you can stretch it. You can obviously expand. It does go full size, etc. It has all the Windows buttons. If you're using Mac, for example, obviously it's going to look slightly different, or Linux. So now we're going to need some buttons and some labels. So we're going to need an input. So here we're making a billing calculator. So we're going to have one input like you saw in the preview and a button. And on the right hand side, we're going to have the output, which is the final cost or the final total of the bill. Now here we're going to be utilizing, we're going to be utilizing place. So we're going to place items here in this window. Now that isn't necessarily the way that you would move forward in placing. We can utilize different systems in order to place items on our or in our window. So this is just for now to give you a general idea of how you can place items in this window. Right, so let's go ahead and now start to add some more items here. So we're going to make a label. So let's go ahead and create our first label. That's going to equal, so our label is going to equal TK. So we're going to get some more tools or more items from TK, and this time we're going to get a label. Okay, so now we're going to define a label. So that's going to be text, and that's going to equal enter bill total. Okay, so that's our label. So we're going to build a label. It's going to be text, and text is going to equal enter bill total. All good. Right, so now let's go ahead and place this. So now we've defined this label. Okay, so essentially what we've done is we've got a label. We've now made a label and we placed it in this variable here. So we can access now some more parameters about this label. So let's now add, for example, label.place, sorry. So we're now going to define where it's going to be placed on the screen. We can select here X and Y. So the X axis and the Y axis. So the X going along the bottom and the Y going along the top. And I can plot a point in which I want to, or where I want to put this text. So I'll define X as 10 across. And then I think from the top, Y is going to be 20. Okay. Right, so we've got that in place, and then also I can now just define, for example, the height. So if you had a look at the manual, you'll find that there's lots of other great things we can do with this. So let's go for 25, I think. So that should add it onto the window. So let's go ahead now and have a look at that. So let's just run this. So we can now see we have so across we've got 10, down we've got 20, height. So behind the scenes this is going to be in a box. So I've added a height of 25, and what we're going to do now is just going to add a background for no particular reason, just to show you how to add a background. It's going to kind of highlight it nicely. So let's go and do that. So we'll just close that. So just adding some more to this config, and then we're going to add a background. That's going to equal light. I'm going to go for light green. I think it was in the preview. And then let's go ahead and add, let's get rid of some padding. So padding X equals 0. So we're going to padding Y as well. So if you're used to things like CSS, for example, there's a lot of code here that's kind of very similar. When you start coding it, you'll feel a little bit at home. There's lots of different things here like X and Y. If you're familiar to, for example, JavaScript as well, I guess height 25. It's similar to, I wouldn't say it's similar to CSS, but you'll get a good feel of it very quickly. Right, so we've got that in place. So let's have a look now. There we go. So let's just add some pad X of say 40. Let's just quickly see what happens there. So we'll just close that down. You can see that we're adding on the X left and right 40 padding. So Y would be top and bottom. So that's where the padding is appearing. So I'm just going to set that to 0. Right. So now we've got that label in place. let's move now and create an entry box so that we can actually type something in and actually try and work out a total. So here we've got entry box equals. Again, we're going to borrow some tools. We'll use some tools. So this is going to be an entry from TK. And this time we're not going to have any default text, but text is going to equal nothing to begin with. Maybe you want a kind of a default entry or something like that. So let's go ahead and do that. And then let's go ahead and put in an entry underscore box. So we're just adding this now to the window where we want it. So X is going to be 10. So I want it in the same kind of alignment as the label. And then Y, so I'm going to have this further down. So Y is 20. So in this case, on the Y axis, I want maybe 40. So that's going to be slightly lower than my label. And then the width. So let's make that, for example, 110. And then height, let's keep this consistent with 25. Right. So now we've gone ahead and created an entry box. Hopefully that makes sense. And let's go ahead and just close what we've got here. Let's open it up again. Let's open it up again. Oh, place. That is not right. Apologies. It should be dot place. Apologies. Right. Okay. So there we go. So now we can enter the total. Good. Right. So we've seen how to make a label, and now we've seen how to make an entry box. So we want to make a button now. So we can press this button, and we can then fire off that to a piece of code, which is then going to calculate the total. So bill, there we go. And then let's go ahead and use command. That's going to equal get. Well, this is going to equal. So what we're doing here, apologies, we're making a button. I think that's self-explanatory. So we're going to get the tools from Tkinter, a button, and then we're going to add some text to the button, and then we're then going to connect that to a function. That doesn't exist yet. We need to build it up here. That's the actual functionality to actually perform the operations of calculating the bill, etc. So that's going to be connected to a command, and we'll build that shortly. And that's how we're going to fire off our command to actually calculate the bill. Right. So we'll do that shortly, but let's go ahead and just finish off this button. Let's configure this button. So we're going to use, for example, font equals 16. Here comes your CSS again. Font equals 16, and then button place. So now we're going to place it on the screen. You're probably getting familiar with this. So 10, we don't need spaces. Y equals 170. Say that might be okay. Width equals, so this is the width of the button. So our window is 400. So let's just leave a little bit either side. So let's give it 380. And then the height, the height equals 35. Like I said, there is a better way of placing this on the screen. We're using place here. It's workable, but once you start scaling and moving, once you start scaling the box, you'll see that it doesn't really work very well. So for example here, it's just going to stay in that place. If you place it, it's just always going to be in that place. And obviously we want it to scale potentially as our window grows. So place isn't going to provide you that. But for the purpose of this tutorial, let's continue. Now we have a calculate bill button. Right, so at this point, you probably get the idea. We're going to just reuse some code now. So I'm just going to, I pre-coded this. So we're going to create a new label. We know how to make a label. We've done that already. So bring in TK label. We've got some text, total price after discount. And then we go ahead and place it in our window. Okay, so X and Y. And then we're going to configure it. So we've got the background light green, padding X0, like we've done before. And then we go ahead and create a text box where we're going to enter the final price. But at the moment, this is going to be a message box. Okay, widget display multi-line text. Okay, so let's add a default text of £0, 0 pence, width 200, font 16. Right, so we've got that. We're going to give it a background, a light green background, and then we'll place it on the screen. So we've now got, apologies, we've now got our label. That wasn't very clear, apologies. You can see we've got our label now, and we've got our text box. Right, so now we've got that in place. Let's have a look at that. So there we go. You can see what's going to happen here. We're going to type in, and that's going to then get calculated when we press the calculate bill. And then we're going to update this text box here with the outcome or the total bill after the discount. Right, so let's go back to our button. Now remember here, I said that we will add a new option here. So this is going to be command. Okay, so this is going to allow us to run a command when we press the button. So we're going to run a function called getBillTotal. Now notice we're not using the doubles here. Oh, sorry, the parentheses here. Just getBillTotal. So that's the function that we're going to be looking for. Right, so let's now go ahead and build this. So getBillTotal. So let's just put this in place, and let's just make it into a function. Sorry, I was thinking ahead then. So let's make it into a function. Apologies. Right, so let's just pass. So you can see that's connected up now to get total bill function. Right, so now we just need to recreate our bill. So what we're going to do is get the information, right? So the user's going to type in to the entry box some text. So we need to grab that. So when they press this button, we need to grab the entry. So that's the bill amount that the user's going to type in. So that's important to understand. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab that. So how to do that? Let's create a new variable. I'm going to call this entered bill total. Okay, so that's the entered bill total, and that's going to equal. Now we're going to connect that to our entry box. So that's entry box dot get. This type of terminology is really interesting if you're familiar with other languages, etc. Get and post. Here we're using get. Is similar to getting information from a HTTP request, the word get. So we're going to get the entry box. Now this is a reference entry box here. It's a reference you can see to the entry box. And we're going to get. So we're going to get the information from our box. So let's just show this in place. Let's just print this out so we can see this working. This is a good way to work if you're new or doing something new. Let's just see if this works. Let's just go step by step. So here, let's run our program. Let's type in 100. So we're going to click on calculate bill. We're going to get that, and then we're going to print it out, and it's right here. So clearly we are getting that information. So we're definitely working in the right direction. Right, so let's just run this again. Let's, for example, type in something that we know that's going to be wrong. And you can see we are collecting that, and it's returning SGV. And that isn't very useful, right? So what we want to do potentially is we want to make sure that the information that's entered is, for example, a float. So let's try and make sure that's the case. So let's do a try here, for example. A try accept. So bill total. Let's make a new variable equals float, and then that's the entered bill total. So we're going to take the information from the entered bill total. We're going to cast it into a float, or try to at least. And then obviously if that returns a value error, we're going to just capture that. So accept value error, and then let's go ahead now and just text box text. So we're going to grab the text box text, and we're going to output in the text box text incorrect value entered. Right, so what's that? What's the text box? Text. So text box, let's have a look. So we're referring to this text box down here. Well, this is where we're going to change the text. So we're grabbing the text in the text box. So what do we currently have? We currently have text equals £0, 0 pence. So we're going to replace that text with incorrect value entered. Right, so let's go ahead and do that. And then we're going to return. So let's go ahead and give that a go. So we need to close this up and start it again. So this time when we type in something that's incorrect, bam, incorrect value entered. So we're just capturing that. Let's press 100 and obviously now it should be okay, but we haven't put anything in place for that yet. So we're not changing the text. The text is going to stay there until we change it or close the application in this case. Right. Right, so now we've done that. We've tried that. Let's now perform some calculations. So the final total, that's after the, that's going to be after we've done the calculation. So we're now going to calculate the discount. So we're going to create a new function to calculate the discount, and we're going to take in the bill total. So we're going to pass in the bill total. Remember, bill total is here. So we've taken the information that the user's entered. We've checked to make sure it's a float. Otherwise, we told them it's the incorrect value. And they need to enter it again. If not, the bill total would then go into the function, the calculate discount function. And then from here, we can then calculate the discount. Right, so we're going to just use format to put that into 2 decimal places. Good. Right, so now let's build our calculate discount function. Right, okay, so we're going to pass in the bill total. So we're going to calculate discount. So let's bring that in as, for example, total. And now let's go ahead and do this. So discount %. Now, if you remember, if you did complete the activity in the Python beginners course, what we did here was we had different percentage discounts depending on how much we spent. So we created a new function called calculate discount percentage. You don't need to do this, of course. You could just set this up. So we did that. We created a new function here called calculate discount percentage. We then passed in the total. That's what's all been passed through. So that's the original number the users typed in. So then we created a new function here called that. We passed in that into the function here. And then we created some ifs, an if statement here to work out if the value is more than or equal to 100, we gave them a discount of 20%, which we referenced as 20 in our calculation. Okay, and then else if total was more than 0 and total was less than 100, then we gave them a discount of equals 10. And then we return the discount. Okay, so that returns back here into our discount percentage. And now we can perform the calculation. So the actual discount that we're going to perform equals the total. So remember BODMAS here, total minus total divided by 100. So that's going to be done first times the discount percentage. So that's going to give us a 10% or 20% discount. Now, yeah, so we bring back in, so we call the function here, we work out the discount, we return the discount, either 10 or 20, that goes into discount percentage, and then we use it here to work out, so this is going to be done first here, BODMAS, remember, so left to right, divide and multiply, so divide would be done first, and then the multiplication, and then we'll be subtracting from the original total, and that gives us the final price. So discount now holds the final price, and then we return discount. So that's the final price. Right, so back here then, we've done all this now. We've returned the final price. So now the final total is holding the final price. So what we need to do now is what we've done before. We need to go into that text box, and then we need to replace the text, square brackets. We need to replace the text in the text box to equal pound sign or whatever currency you want, and then the final total. Whew. Right, so there we go. So we've called it right here, this function. We've now performed all the functionality we need to perform. So let's give it a go, I guess. Right, so here we go. Let's type in 100, calculate the bill, 80. So that was 20%, remember. So if I did 50, that should only be 10% discount. There we go, so 45. Okay, so that's really just an extension activity. This is why it's called Python Beginner Plus. So we're just extending from what we learned in the Python Beginners course. And we've taken one of our actual applications we built in Python Beginner, and we've created a nice graphical user interface for it. And hopefully you found that fairly interesting. And it's definitely a lot more exciting than just coding out a simple program and outputting it into the terminal. So hopefully you agree that was a nice introduction to TK interface. We picked up a lot of different skills there for you to now easily implement, I say easily, to easily implement some basic, I say basic again, some basic applications using a graphical user interface. And of course, now you can go and explore some of the other options that are available. Like I said, you could convert that into an actual exe. It's really easily done for with a few different packages that you can install. That shouldn't take long, and that should be easy to find online. Maybe I can make a tutorial for that. If you would like, I can do that. And have a look at the manual, because we've used some of the different tools in the labels, the text box, etc. We've changed some colors and some fonts. And you can see, like I said, if you do come from a JavaScript type of CSS background, a lot of the code is very similar, very familiar. You'll feel at home editing and creating your interface. So thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.